Hey, what's going on? It's Aaron here, and welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast, episode number 86 today, to preview the Canadian Grand Prix and talk about any Formula 1 news out this week with the usual hosts, myself, Aaron, Callum, and Tom. A little bit of a caveat before we get into this episode, a little bit of a note on the next podcast, or next week's podcast. There might be a little bit of a delay, as that obviously the Canadian Grand Prix, the review for it, might be maybe a day or two late, or even might not come out and might be a whole week delayed, because on the weekend of the Canadian Grand Prix, I'm personally out in LA for E3. So I'll try my best to kind of liaison with Cal and Tom here and try and see if we can organise something, because I'll have my laptop there, so we'll try and record it whilst I'm out there if we can. And if so, might be like 1 or 2 days late, like during the week, like Wednesday or something like that. But if not, then there might be a whole week. So just a little note, so just heads up, that's the situation for next week. But we're going to get into this week's news, previewing the Canadian Grand Prix. And the kind of biggest talk is really these big Canada engine upgrades. Heard of a lot of it, pretty much since the start of the season, especially Renault put out a roadmap of what they were going to do. And it was always kind of marked on the calendar, Canada. Canada's always been a big kind of landmark, I guess, in most seasons gone by in the V6 era for engine upgrades, especially for Honda. But Renault this year have been the big ones, where it's been a big talking point about Red Bull needing it to be a good one. Of course, they're kind of half and half at the moment, maybe deciding whether they want to go with Renault or Honda. They've kind of delayed their talks with Honda because they want to see maybe how this Renault upgrade goes. And obviously for the Works Renault team, they want to make the leap up and continue to score good points. And for McLaren as well, it'd be good for them to actually see a boost. So I don't know, what do we reckon? Tom,
it's a big one. You could say it's a season-defining one in many ways. This will confirm various, thoughts and whether there could be some interesting challenges in the championship. But overall, I think for Renault, this has to be good. I don't know about you, but I feel like ever since we got the engine tokens removed, I feel like there was more of an effort to bring engine upgrades when we had the tokens rather than when we don't have them. Or it doesn't get talked about as much now.
Almost, yeah.
They don't seem to be that pretty much emphasis on bringing the upgrade. So it's good to see for a change a team engine producer trying to really put the effort in to try and bring a substantial upgrade. And hopefully, we're all hoping, I'm pretty sure, unanimously across the board here, that upgrade is actually a pretty effective one. It's a major one. So it's been talked about for a long, long time, to be fair. I mean, I heard rumours from way back in pre-season or even Australia. I remember reading a few Spanish articles or something. The rumours saying for Canada they might have something lined up. So, it's been talked about for a long time. So this could be a pretty big one in my opinion, and I'm hoping it works, really, for the championship and also, from, like you said, for Red Bull. For Renault and especially McLaren as well. I want to try and see if they can find something else apace.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. They're them especially. I think they're going to need a bit of a booster, because aerodynamically, I don't know if they have any upgrades for Canada, but clearly Monaco wasn't exactly amazing for their car to show that off versus everyone else. But yeah, I mean, on the point of Red Bull. On the whole engine thing, like I mentioned, also they had a deadline for Honda, and I believe they kind of basically said to Honda or Renault, I think Renault set them a deadline, wasn't it? That was I think before Monaco, and Red Bull essentially.
It was early May, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so I think they kind of informally almost kind of just went, okay, well, I know you set a deadline, but just wait a little bit, please. Just wait a little bit.
I think the next one's July or something, or literally the 1st of July or something.
I was going to ask, when is the deadline?
I think it's very late June, like the 30th of June or the 1st of July, something like that. I think I remember reading somewhere.
Red Bull in quite a difficult position, because let's say Renault do step up, and it depends on how obviously big the step up is, but let's say if they do step up, then where does that leave Red Bull, with Honda making, well, on the face of it, quite serious advancements with Toro Rosso and working so closely with Toro Rosso? What does Red Bull do in that situation now if they do turn up to Canada? And Canada is going to be quite a pivotal part of the season, and we will talk about that later in the podcast for Red Bull. If they do turn up at Red Bull and look like they can challenge for the win, where do they go? Do they stick with their homeboys that they've been with for, I think, almost 10 years? It's almost like the same
over
10 years.
McLaren situation. Do you go for that opportunity of leaving where you've been comfortable and go for a new exciting opportunity where you could really potentially exponentially accelerate? And, there's the added chance that, with McLaren, it blew up in their face, basically, and backfired.
Well, that's what happens with a big team when they try and, steer the path of what they want from an engine supplier, whereas actually an engine supplier in this case has steered the path of Toro Rosso, and it's worked out quite well.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe that's what might dissuade Red Bull.
Yeah, they've
I think
worked
it's
really
just
well.
It's a massive sideways step, isn't it? In my opinion, I don't know. There's not really a. I think the only benefit you're going to get with Honda, as it stands right now, is maybe the freak race where the engine seems to go hand in hand with a car like Gasly at Bahrain or Monaco or something, and you can really get the most out of it. But I think in terms of a consistent performer, if there's no reliability troubles, surely Renault is one you've got to stick with, especially if this improvement is an improvement. I think Red Bull now, they need to be back at the top because they need to start winning. Because otherwise, once again, they're going to be one of them ones who risk fading into that McLaren abyss of we're on the comeback trail, but every year passes and
I mean,
they're
the
sort of in the same place. Yeah, of course, but they've won races. But what I'm saying is they're still nowhere near a championship.
Oh yeah.
Like absolutely nowhere near a
season,
championship.
Yeah.
You know, since 2013, they've not touched anything. So that's a good 5 to 6 years now. So really, if they were to take on Honda and wait another 3 or 4 years and it doesn't really work out, then you're starting to get into a bit of a
I mean, the argument is like looking at. I think we talked about it also after Bahrain. Like looking at the speed traps of that Toro Rosso Honda, it's very clear that it's not actually that bad in a straight line. Like it's more so almost points a few fingers at McLaren's quite a draggy car, and McLaren have had to admit that their car is very draggy. And one of the updates for Spain was just trying to reduce that drag. So maybe, I don't know, Red Bull's. I don't know how draggy Red Bull's car is in comparison to McLaren's or Toro Rosso's. But that's maybe something they have to factor in. That
I remember back to Baku that they had to run some very skinny wings. I remember seeing their wings comparing to Mercedes and Ferrari, and you thought, yeah, they're sacrificing a bit of downforce here. But I've noticed that it is quite hard to judge straight line speed these days because Mercedes are never the fastest anymore, and that's just because they can lump on the downforce because they've still got a beefy engine. So it is quite difficult to see.
But
if a Ferrari engine has got better, if a Mercedes engine's got better, or if a Honda or a Renault is actually making forward steps, or is it they're just lopping off a load of wing, being a bullet in a straight line, then they skid off when they get to the corner.
But there's so many more aspects to an engine, like an engine performance situation, because it's also just torque, acceleration out of corners, drivability, energy saving.
Reliability is a big one, isn't it?
Reliability. It's not just the top speed. I think there's a lot of other elements where Mercedes, sure, they might be breaking the speed traps, but they're always in the top 10. And besides that, they obviously save their energy really well. Energy recovers nicely.
Well, the only engine that's failed this season, I think, is Ocon at Spain, and that engine was reused in Monaco. It was just an oil problem. So in terms of reliability, you've got to say Mercedes have it. But with the hypothetical question from Jake in our Patreon page, if Red Bull do go for Honda, will they fall back or not? Or is it a massive sideways step? Or is it actually going to be
as it stands? I think they fall back as it stands. I think you'd expect Ferrari to take another step forward next year. Especially, I think next year. Here's the thing: it's a bit of a double-edged sword because you've got the changing regulations next year when it comes to the aero. So Red Bull have a very good chance of leveling the playing field. Would you rather try level the playing field with the devil that you know rather than one that you don't when it comes to the engine?
Yeah, I think that's a good point for next. If the aero changes weren't there, I would say take the hit. Maybe going a little bit backwards with Honda and then potentially go forward, working a lot more.
Yeah, because in 2021 you get a second chance
machine with Honda because it's very clear that McLaren just didn't work very well with Honda, whereas Toro Rosso have, and I feel like Red Bull can learn a lot from Toro Rosso and are learning from Toro Rosso. So if the changes weren't there, I would say go with Honda. But yeah, like you say, because the changes are there, it's more of a case of try and keep other stuff constant and try and obviously just do the best job they can on the rules. So keep the engine constant, keep Renault. And yeah, being Red Bull, I'm sure they're licking their lips a little bit in terms of, maybe Red Bull being the aero guys, maybe don't like the idea of lopping off a bit of aero at the front. But being the aero guys, they're surely in the best position, probably the best guys to work around that and find that downforce.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, you've always got the second. You've got like the sort of get out of jail free card in 2021, haven't you? So
exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
they could take that risk. They take that plunge. But
what's just popped into my head is, can you remember back in the early the 2010 through to 2013 era when Red Bull were always pinned as that team who were rubbish in a straight line because the Renault just wasn't. And this is a good 5, 6, 7, almost 8 years ago.
They were never
now.
great.
They were always pinned as the guys that weren't quick in a straight line. And then I can't remember what year it was, but they won Monza. And everyone thought, I think it was 2011.
Yeah.
And they won Monza, and everyone was like, how the hell did they manage it? And it's just because they literally piss off into the distance, and they don't need the straight line speed. I think
they
obviously
cut-
straight line
no,
speed
no,
is a
but
little
they
bit
actually-
more. Go on.
They cut off all the aero, but they still had too much compared to the others.
Yeah, that's true. But even still, they managed to work, obviously, in that season, the blown diffuser, just make that
Exactly.
absolutely perfect. And they were sorted. So, out of everyone, I feel like Red Bull don't need to take the risk at the moment. But with contracts looming, they are in a very, very difficult spot. And whether they swing one way or the other, like I'm pretty sure they've got loads of information on that Honda now. With Toro Rosso
Yeah,
sitting there,
for sure,
chugging along
for
with
sure.
6 races under the belt. I'm pretty sure they've got good access to info.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you look on paper, Honda this year with Toro Rosso, this year as a whole is better than the year any of the 3 years they've had with McLaren.
oh yeah,
already,
it's the
I
most
think.
successful season they've
So
had since
they've
come
already,
back.
as a
Yeah.
first season to build upon, they've got a good base. But it depends on how much risk they want to take, and also sponsor-wise, are they willing to wait? There's also the whole Aston Martin thing in the pipeline. So there's a lot of. I feel like Aston Martin in 2021 is what they're looking for, but they need to find a short-term solution from now until then, whether it's Honda or Renault.
I think that short-term
feel
solution's banking on and hoping Renault really start to step up, because that's the thing they've got going for them. Like Renault as a factory team want to improve as well, so it's
They've
that
got
kind of
more
double
incentive,
spur on
yeah.
for them. So I
Yeah,
think,
and
like you say, Aston Martin's a very interesting thing for 2021. So it's kind of like just kind of keep your fingers crossed. Renault have a blip of performance.
Yeah, I agree. But thanks to Jake for that question. That was
Yeah.
on the Discord, so one of our
in our
patrons. So thank you for
Patreon
that.
page. So little shout out to that. If you do want to support us directly and you like what we're doing around here, you can also support us enough to ask us questions on our Discord. Another question by Jake as well from our Patreon page was if we're Toto Wolff, would we re-sign Valtteri Bottas given of his good start? And I think a lot of journalists would definitely pre-Spain kind of saying he's been kind of going under the radar. And I would still say now he's kind of gone on the radar. He's had a very solid season compared to his first season in Mercedes. Would we re-sign him?
Before we go on,
Yeah,
sorry.
go on.
I was just going to say, before we get into this, we got a little bit of hate. Do you know when we were doing our best driver of the start of the season so far? We gave Bottas a lot of praise, and I did want to point out we forgot about a crucial crash that he did at the start of the season in qualifying in Australia. And we all forgot about that, so I just wanted to address that.
I was aware, but
Yeah,
that's why I rate him so high, because he bounced back in a really good way.
yeah, he did. But
Well, I think he's done. I think he's done such a good job. But we pretty much forgot about that. But anyway, would we re-sign him if we were Toto Wolff right now, or bring in Ocon at the end of the season?
If I'm Toto Wolff, I re-sign him. If it's me, I don't, because I want to see a driver shuffle of massive proportions, because I'm bored of the current lineup we have.
Right.
But
Yeah,
if
so
I'm
actually,
Toto Wolff,
yeah,
I'll re-sign him.
I think being in Toto Wolff's shoes, I think the safer option is signing Bottas, and he seems to be quick enough to the point where if the car's not an absolute dog in the corners, he can take it to a comfortable, 3 or 2 if the car's there with Hamilton as well. But yeah, I think it would be intriguing though, very intriguing to see how someone like Ocon could do in that car.
You know what I've noticed recently is within the past 10 years, obviously we've had certain records break with youngest race winner, youngest world champion, and it was every couple of years. So Hamilton knocked Alonso did it, then Hamilton knocked all the records off,
Different ways,
and then
yeah.
Vettel did it, and then Verstappen's come along and knocked a few of them off as well. Now, what I've noticed is, obviously, those 4 drivers have been quite big handfuls in their certain elements. Obviously, Verstappen is proving it now, and there has been a lot of commotion around him, but we've spoken so much about him that I don't think there's any point in mentioning him.
Yeah.
But even with Hamilton, Vettel and Alonso, they are very difficult characters in which have become very mature and absolutely incredible racing drivers when they're older. And I feel like these big bosses now aren't that bothered of rushing in the young guy, because they see that using the older, more experienced guys is just more guaranteed success. And obviously you do get the odd little issue here and there, but I think on the face of it, just general in team bosses are just like, you know what, I think we'll just stay with the older guys. The younger guys, they can stay in the midfield team and they can get the call up when they're older, because drivers seem to be hitting their peaks in the early 30s. And we're seeing that with Hamilton. Vettel's in his prime as well. Alonso's arguably in his prime, currently off doing Le Mans and doing Indy as well. And he's moving into his late 30s now. and even with Kimi Raikkonen as well, and he's still doing an exceptional job as a number 2 driver at Ferrari, whether or not he could be argued as, pushing for the title.
That's an interesting debate, because you've got to look at it as a team perspective. So a lot of people give Vettel and Ferrari a lot of crap for keeping Raikkonen on, but it's the same reason why it makes perfect sense for Mercedes as a team to keep Bottas on alongside Hamilton, because it's a teammate that isn't going to upset the apple cart, is going to do a job, whilst also still pushing your number 1 driver without getting complacent.
Unlike having a Hamilton and an Alonso in the team, for example, which is
Exactly.
just 2 alphas that are just going to clash all the time. So that
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's why I'd wrap it up as teams. The reason we are getting bored with these driver lineups is because Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull. I think Red Bull are a slight caveat with Verstappen, but even with Ricciardo, he's actually getting on a bit now. He's coming into his driver. He's coming into his prime now. So I think. I don't know what.
Which is why his contract situation is so interesting.
Exactly, he is hot.
I think he's the last piece. He's like the last big driver where it's a question mark, because I think it's like it's almost like to use use a football analogy on this podcast. It's almost like when you have like a really exciting talent in a lower football team, and there's like constant years of rumors of them getting signed up to, I don't know, Real Madrid or something, just like off the top of my head, like a big rich club. And it's almost like that. Like at the moment, the top teams are all locked in. They're the big names, the big ones with all the experience. There's no need. Apart from Ricciardo, there isn't any kind of rush to quickly sign anyone, because it's kind of like, okay, we can wait our time, just eke out the last few years of these guys, that they've got in the sport. Hamilton might have 5 odd years in him, Alonso maybe 3, 2, Raikkonen 3, 2, just, eke out the last bits we can, and then when it comes to that point, we can then go then. No need to rush right now. I think that's the state that F1 teams have got in right now, after what was maybe 2 years ago quite a quick rush to get these new guys in.
Yeah,
Alonso's an interesting one. I will say, I've heard some rumours. I would not be surprised if he walks away in the season.
I won't be surprised either, to be honest.
I'm going to be honest. I'm starting to get over the entire thing.
I'm kind of sick of the old Alonso.
I'm just over talking about where he's going. I'm just like, yeah, just do what he wants, really. It's just, it seems where he goes in F1 now is just bad luck, really.
But to be fair, though, even with the younger drivers, so let's say an Ocon or even a Leclerc, who's been hot news at the moment, even the bigger drivers, is if they sit in a midfield team constantly picking up good points, or even a Sainz I'm going to throw into there as well, if they're sitting there constantly building up points, they're going to be ready to be called up, and they're going to be hitting their peaks as well at pretty much the right time.
It's a funny balance. You've got to make sure you don't do a Perez with any of these guys.
Or a Verstappen in some cases. Even Christian Horner's
been
saying
that... Verstappen's lucky. He has some sort of guarantee where he's never going to be dropped from the Red Bull team, ever. Unless he leaves.
Not ever, but,
I think Verstappen's absolutely untouchable in Red Bull for some reason. Whether it's because the money he brings in or because of who he is, I'm not sure.
It's not the money. Yeah, it's just because of his talent. But I feel like after Horner saying that Verstappen... Yeah, Perez is the perfect modern day example.
He's most drivers, I'm saying, normally.
Yeah, he's the average. He's not the world champion. Like
what Ocon is a Perez. You could bring Ocon up to Mercedes, you could have a dodgy season, and they might just say, you know what, sorry mate.
Yeah, that is true.
I'd argue that Ocon was better than Perez.
Oh yeah, of course. I think he's better, but I'm just saying it's very easy to have the same situation with someone like an Ocon or a Gasly maybe. I think you got to be careful. I think personally.
Yeah, I even forgot Gasly as well. There are so many hot shots ready, waiting in the wings, but I don't know. It's an interesting one,
floating in the wings.
I think, that Mercedes were always going to be happy with just Hamilton and Rosberg, and those two were alphas clashing. So,
I think they're happy. I think Hamilton and Bottas work to get it seems like they get along. Like there's no tension really. I think Hamilton, in the back of his mind, knows if he wants to and really digs deep, he can always just thump Bottas when he wants to. There might be that odd one race that Bottas just has it. So in that case, Hamilton's happy. I think Bottas has got to be happy because this is the only place he's going to get a top drive, and it's a good point in his career. So I think that entire ecosystem is just all thumbs up, really. So if you were Toto Wolff, I would say you would re-sign him in a heartbeat.
Simple as that.
Yeah. But good question, because definitely is, if you think about it deeper, it does kind of speak a lot about the driver market at the moment, the way it works.
It just seems to have swung, because we went through a period where it was like, you need to get the youngest driver, and then I think we hit not rock bottom, but we hit what is the bumpy patch when you rush a driver in too early with Verstappen. And yeah, we can win you the odd race, but then you can also get into 6 incidents in 6 races. And
I think that, and also honestly, I think also we hit the. I think it's really pretty much the same time as the 2017 regulations. We've also come to a formula now where, it's very like the car. I think more than ever does determine a lot of how your race can go. We've seen this season so far. Haas, the way they swung so badly in Monaco is like
they need drivers
with these
to
new
understand
regulations.
that.
If the car is not working that weekend, it is not working that weekend, and it's hard for young talent to show their stuff. Whereas previously, I think in 2016 and 2015, you could show off your prowess a little bit more. You could actually really, truly drag the car up, maybe where it didn't need to be. So I think that also coincides with it. But yeah, we definitely have shifted mentality. Ricciardo's the only one left, really, where we're questioning where he's going to go.
Good topic, that. Good question.
Yeah,
All this talk, but, at the end of the day, we have to get through the next race where the big upgrades come in. And another race which will, like Ricciardo mentioned, he said himself, if he gets one more win, he might consider himself an outsider for the championship. And we go into Canada next.
Definitely been a question. I mean, now it's, I can't remember the stat F1 tweeted, but I think it's like the 3rd time only in history where 3 different teams have won the 2 races apiece in the first 6 races.
Yeah.
Ferrari 2, Merc 2, Red Bull 2. So don't want to tempt fate, but we'll see, because that's another question by someone from Patreon, Omar. Is it really a 3-way championship battle with Ricciardo, Vettel, and Hamilton? Is Red Bull still good enough to keep up with them for the entirety of the season? I guess that kind of moves into, like we were talking about at the very start, the engine upgrades and Canada.
Yeah.
I guess Canada's really the, almost like
down to what
tester of that.
Yes, it's what Ricciardo, it comes down to what Ricciardo said himself in an interview this week, saying, if I win one more race from now to the halfway point of the season, you can consider me an outsider. So straight away he's saying he's not a contender or a favourite. He's an outsider, even if he wins another race. So that says it all pretty much. I think we knew Red Bull had a good car. And after the first 2 races, we was like, yeah, just write them off because, they really haven't delivered. But then they've shown up here and there a bit more since then. Ricciardo's got 2 W's to his name. They look good, but they are missing something. Who knows? This Renault upgrade, if they can gain 3/10, 4/10, that might just put them in the in the loop where they can cause a lot of trouble. But they just need to find like a half a second at every track to really, except for Monaco, the normal tracks where it's like a normal circuit with medium to high speed corners and a few slow ones. They just need to find like a good half a second to really be on a level playing field with everyone else.
Is that, and also I think maybe Ricciardo needs a little bit of luck as well, of Vettel and Hamilton having finally at some point this season a bad race where they don't score a point, because Ricciardo obviously retired at Bahrain.
Ricciardo's only like 10, 12 points behind Vettel, isn't he? It's just the fact Hamilton's like 15 points clear, which is what makes Ricciardo really far. I think he's like 30 points, 32 points behind. So
that's the thing. Like you have like
it's
one race each for them.
Yeah.
Like because Ricciardo's already been dealt that card in Bahrain, so it's that consistency as well as the win.
Lewis just hasn't had a bad race this year, and that's why he's so far ahead. It happened to everyone eventually have a bad race, so you never know. But this is, unfortunately, in my opinion, a Lewis track. This is his backyard. This is where I think he's 100%. The most successful driver ever at Canada. He's won the most races, so it's going to be hard to write him off around here, especially for pole position.
Yeah, I think he will be. I think Merc will be very, strong favourites around there. It's going to be interesting to see how the strategy plays out. It's the hypersofts there, so how they work there will be a question for, again, that same kind of debate of Merc v Ferrari v Red Bull, how each of their cars react to that.
At least this time they won't be able to stay out. They'll have to pit because of the track.
Yeah, no.
They'll get overtaken.
It's interesting. Have you seen the tyre allocations?
Because, Ferrari's on the softest.
Yes, Merc have only taken, I think, 4 sets of hypers, so they're not really that interested in that tyre for that weekend. So I think is the Hypersoft a good little race tyre? I think Canada's going to kind of prove that in how it plays in terms of strategy. But in terms of the front 3, I'm excited, but I don't want to get too chirpy because the amount of times we've seen upgrades in the making, and it's just flopped on its face. I feel
Most
like
times they tend to flop.
Yeah, and I'm just basing it off the fact that this is not a recent Renault thing, and obviously it links to what I said earlier, is the fact that Renault has always been the engine that's the slowest. It's just always has been in the past 10 years. So if they can make that step forward finally, then great, because that swings Red Bull straight into contention, and that makes us predicting the top 5 impossible. But it's Ferrari that are interesting me, because when you think Canada, you think Mercedes, Hamilton, but I can't work out where Ferrari will be, because this year it seems like they've got a well-rounded car. It's definitely more well-rounded than last season's. Is it more well-rounded than the Mercedes and the Hamilton going at it? I'm not sure.
They've got a well-rounded car, but I don't think they're as consistent as last year.
Like Hamilton's got a good chance to just, it's his track. Like
he can blitz it. If he gets on pole, he's going to blitz it.
But if Merck's just a little bit waney, like they kind of were in Spain Q2, or a little bit kind of like, we don't really know what's going on with the car at the moment. Ferrari do have a good chance, I think, because I think they'll be close.
I think they'll be better than last year. I mean, I watched qualifying back a few days ago, actually, so I was bored. I watched the highlights back. And Vettel got second place in qualifying. He split the Mercedes. But the lap in Q3, Hamilton just put in a lap that was 4 tenths faster. Literally just put in a killer lap at the end of Q3.
Yeah.
If Ferrari can just be like a tenth or two adrift, half the deficit and sort of be there or thereabouts, you never know. I think they have a better car to compete with, because obviously the longer wheelbase, that's their intention. But I just can't see. Unfortunately, this is one where I'm going to say I'm going to go for very boring predictions for this one.
Yeah, I mean, also, the added thing on top of this, you never know. Canada has been known in the past to have a few little brake issues. Obviously, it's a circuit where a lot of braking power is needed, and we've seen that in past. 2014, obviously, was classic. But even before then, just seasons gone by, there's been some brake issues here and there. So you never know, that might play into it.
I might have to take Magnussen out of my fantasy team then.
Yeah, or just Haas in general.
Yeah, Haas in general, because they're going
I think away from the top guys, that midfield is going to be a very juicy fight, I think. McLaren, Renault, Force India obviously will come back into it with the Merc power coming in on the back straights.
I'm going to call Sauber a dark horse in this one.
Leclerc said it's a very good car in a straight line. So, like Spain, he stayed ahead of Alonso for so long because he said the straight line was really good. So, yeah, they might be a very good dark horse, actually, yeah.
What's interesting is...
Apparently Leclerc said not just a straight, just the nature of the track, it really apparently suits their car. The corners aren't really high speed and they're not slow speed. They're sort of average, and that's good for them because they're not great in the really high speed ones and they're not good in the really slow ones.
Well, it's not slow, but they are generally quite slow. Like, it's hairpins and chicanes, so...
Yeah, but it's not Monaco, is what I think Leclerc was alluding to. It's not like just super slow corners. They're relatively...
The car's going to have some natural rotation from just the car rolling into the apex as they slow down. So, yeah. I mean,
that, to be fair, I think that's what Hamilton brought up, was the fact that you can't write Red Bull off too much because of the fact that it is still quite slow. It's not like we're going to a Spain or a Silverstone, but in terms of the midfield, like, I was going to go, we'll just throw Force India into the mix, but I'd have never thrown them into the mix for Monaco, but yet they managed to get 6. So I don't know what to predict for the midfield.
Cars that go well in Monaco tend to go well in Canada. It's what I've realised in the last couple of years. So
yeah, you'd like to think that it will be Williams will probably move forward a little bit.
But then, you forget about McLaren, you forget about Renault, Toro Rosso. Could they have a Bahrain freak of performance?
Or could they drop back?
Yeah, you never know.
In Spain.
Cool. I mean, Williams, Sirotkin, showed signs. Williams have always gone well at Canada in the V6 era. That's where the last podium is. So you never know.
To be fair, what has proved quite pivotal with Leclerc is that he's done well at the tracks that he's raced at before. And obviously Canada isn't on the F2 or F3 calendar. So
good point.
Might be time for Ericsson to come back.
Maybe that's the Ericsson comeback. But this is what I mean, maybe in terms of Haas and in terms of Force India, this is probably where they might take their step forward in terms of drivers, because they've got experience around there. McLaren will probably do quite well Williams. With their experience, because it just seemed like we've always kind of glossed over it, but it has made quite a difference. Could we turn up to Bahrain and Gasly, the first track that he's actually raced around, and he's hooked it up and actually blowing everyone out of the water. So
and Stroll's home race as well. You never know. You can maybe get half a second out of the car.
Yeah, we got points last season, so let's not forget that. But
that was his first points of the season. Could be this year points again. But it's gonna be interesting. I think predictions wise, top 3 teams in midfield, really. I think you're looking at, to be honest. But it's good though, because in the midfield, I think Williams have found a bit of pace, so there's no real low last team now. It's sort of just a midfield, or just a top and bottom, if you want to call it top and bottom. So you've got literally the top 3 and the rest.
Well, they say that they've come out of that divot. They said
1.5.
They're moving forward. They're saying that they're never going to be at their lowest point this season again, which I'll see it when I see it. Then I'll start believing it. But
well, I guess that kind of works us nicely into those predictions then for the Canadian Grand Prix. So I guess we'll start off with the pole position then. I think Tom, you already kind of mentioned who you're maybe going to go with, but
yeah, I'll be surprised if everyone disagrees with me when I say Lewis Hamilton's going to go on pole here.
Yeah, I'm going to go for pole Hamilton as well.
Yeah, I'm going to have to round out the top
and
3
then,
with that one.
Top 5 is I'm just going to go for Hamilton, Vettel, Bottas, Raikkonen, Ricciardo. Pretty straightforward.
Right.
Your average race where Vettel's trying to get Hamilton, but he just can't touch him, and then you've got the 2 drivers battling out after.
All right.
Callum, do you want to go? I'm still thinking a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like I've just checked the weather and there's no rain forecast whatsoever, so that's not going to throw it into
Alonso
the mix.
pole,
so no Alonso pole. I'm going to have to put a Hamilton win. It genuinely could be any of them, really. Let's put a Raikkonen in second. Let's see if he can step up. And then Bottas third, Vettel fourth, Ricciardo fifth.
Massive championship blow then.
I'm going to go Hamilton first, because I think if he gets pole, then I think he'll get the win.
Same. I think second,
I'm going to go for Ricciardo. I'm going to say Red Bull and Renault's upgrades do come in, and maybe they go with a little bit skinnier wings, and they're pretty okay. Ricciardo
thinking.
Second, Vettel I'll go third. I'll go Kimi fourth, and actually no, I'll go Bottas fourth and Kimi fifth. Yeah.
So Verstappen misses out on the top 6 again.
So Verstappen has been royally no-scoped by all 3 of us then.
Yeah.
Basically.
I think he's got to, at least for me personally, he's got to earn back his kind of guaranteed top 5
stripes.
placement for me. Like in the past, I would have been for sure like, oh, he's got to have a chance now. But now I'm kind of like, and now I think in my head, like I think about the start he had last year. But now, when I replay that kind of scenario, I'm always thinking now, after the season he's had so far, like, okay, yeah, he could get a good start and get up to P3 or P2 even, but then something will happen and he'll go down to P7.
It's a kind of race where I can see him just putting it in the Wall of Champions.
I think he'll put it in Champions. I can't see him put it in the Champions, but I just think something might happen.
It's lap
to
29 in the race, and he's lap 29 in the race, and he's P3. He's going really well, and then he just bins it. And then if he does, honestly, there's pressure on Verstappen. If he bins it this weekend again,
I think
something has got to happen, something might happen.
Stern, at least you've got to say, if something happens, public stern words at least have to be said minimum.
Well, I mean, for the entertainment value, I'd like to see something happen. Sorry, Verstappen, but I want some entertainment in my life.
I mean, if he crashes out in FP3,
bring him back.
I wouldn't be sad, because that would be quite cool. It'd just
be hilarious, to be honest.
Just for the fact for Monaco, but then. I mean, to be honest, if any of the top guys have issues in quali or practice, to see them trying to come back at Canada with the straight line speed and the DRS would be quite something to see anyway. But I mean, I think alone we don't need that. I think the midfield fight's going to be very, very good. Hopefully around there. Hopefully it is that, and we're not just jinxing it by all 3 of us hoping it's going to be a good battle. But I think it will be. I think that Renault engine upgrade will come into play, not just for them, but for other teams. It's gonna hopefully make that difference of how they play it against those teams.
I'm going to put forward a new prediction.
All right.
Who will be the best of the rest?
Well, so P6.
I thought that's a worthy prediction to make. Well, P7 because Verstappen's there. But I mean, let's just say P7 on. Like, that's what I'm saying. The best of the rest prediction.
All right, P7.
It could be P7. Like I'm saying, we don't know, but that's why it's the best of the rest.
I think it's funnier and a bit funnier if you just go, who's going to be P7? Because let's assume it's the top 3 that get it.
We're assuming the top 6 are always going to remain intact for every race this season.
So let's say P7 then, yeah. All right.
So I'm gonna go for Ocon. I think Force India might have something.
Sergio Perez.
Force India run up, clean sweep.
No, I'm not going to go for a Force India. I'm thinking about a few different possibilities here.
Renault, if you think about this, literally anyone can get it.
I'm gonna go for I'm gonna go for my soft spot. I'm gonna go for Carlos Sainz in P7. I think he'll bounce back from Monaco. I think Force India will be good in a straight line, but I don't think it'll be enough.
Very interesting.
That's
I like that one. I like that one because it's, to be fair, that's not even a prediction. That's literally just going pick a driver, any driver.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I think there's a lot of arguments. Because in my head I was like, okay, maybe Haas, if they actually pull up their socks and come back from Monaco, they should be hypothetically quite good around Canada. They have said they're going to bring upgrades, so you could throw in a Magnussen in there who did great in Spain. You could also throw in, surprise Toro Rosso driver, McLaren in there, Force India in there. The only ones I probably wouldn't chuck into P7 would be Williams and Sauber. So yeah, it pretty much is pick anyone.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Well, it's good. It's good that it's pick anyone. I think it's really good that we can't really put a finger on it, especially
compared
to the top
other
five.
years. I love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But I think that pretty much rounds out a pretty neat and tidy preview of the Canadian Grand Prix. So yeah, I mean, is there any kind of final topics that we have floating around, guys, that I'm forgetting about, maybe?
I think that's everything. I think, other than you've already mentioned.
I think we'd be kind of picking
it,
kind of like nitpicking stuff if we were going on any longer. So yeah, I think we'll wrap this up then. So like I said, again, as a reminder, next week, either the podcast can be a little bit late, so like I'm talking a Tuesday or Wednesday upload next week after the Canadian Grand Prix, or there just might not be one next weekend, and it might just move on to episode number 80. What would it be?
87.
87.
Yeah.
It'd be 87, but we'd review the Canadian Grand Prix
Preview
a week
and
after
review.
it's gone.
Yeah.
So there's that possibility. I'll try my best. I'm going to have my laptop out there in LA. I'll try and talk to these guys, try and see. You never know. There's going to be a lot of things that'll be against us, namely hotel Wi-Fi for me, and also the timing for these guys, because I might be in daytime, but it might be too late for these guys. So we'll see. If not the end of the world. We'll just do it next week. Obviously, with this year, we launched the Patreon page. We can afford to have a trip like this, and we can do it next week, and it's not going to be a huge hit to us, and we really do appreciate all those, I think 42 of you in total that are so far supporting our Patreon. We really do appreciate it, and like we mentioned, we brought up 3 questions from our Patreon page today, so if you do want to like what we're doing, want to support us, and want to throw in your question for a future podcast, and you can do so, link in the description. Didn't mention it, but obviously we're on audio on the go. You can get it SoundCloud and iTunes, the Pitlane Podcast. But that's been the preview then for the Canadian Grand Prix. Final one, if you do want to get a racing chair, you can also check out GT Omega, Pitlane F1 code, and that'll also directly support us. But this has been the Pitlane Podcast for the Canadian Grand Prix. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.